Zen Buddhism is mad wicked, and I love that. But most people think that Zen is either religion or philosophy or something you've seen on Pinterest, but really Zen is neither of those. So in this video I'm gonna tell you what Zen is and why it's nothing like anything you've ever heard of. But before we talk about what Zen is teaching, let's talk about how Zen is teaching, and let's do it with a quiz. So here's the question. For Christianity, there's the Bible, and for Islam, there's the Quran. But for Zen, there's which one of these? Jokes, violence, or silence? Take your guess, see if you can guess it. And the answer is all three of them. Yeah, Zen is taught through jokes, violence, and sometimes even silence. Let's talk about that. Now, some of the earliest records of Zen is not some holy scriptures that talk about gods and angels, but they're jokes. Simple, stupid, sometimes quite lame dad jokes. And this is the holy scriptures of Zen, jokes. Now in traditional Zen it's not called jokes, it's called koans. And a koan is a short piece of text that should be funny and have some element of nonsense to them. And a koan is something a master would traditionally give to the Zen student when they came, something they could reflect on to learn about themselves. And I'll give you an example. This is one of the classic koans. It goes like this. Two Zen students were discussing. They were looking at a flag. One student said, "The flag is moving." The other student said, "No, the wind is moving." And then the Zen master came by and said, "No, your minds are moving." Ha ha ha, that's funny. And while a koan is meant to be funny, it's also a way to help you deepen your understanding of your own mind. Because in some way, when you reach a point where your normal logical mind really can't continue, then you sort of have to let go of that part of the brain to continue. Like in this example with the flag, like logically they're both right. The flag is moving, the wind is moving. But as the Zen master points out, it's really just a matter of interpretation, so it's our mind moving. And I guess by sort of letting go of that logic, you can interpret it in a new way and experience your own mind and how it sort of tries to make meaning of what it sees. So the idea is quite simply that through these jokes, through these koans, you get confronted with this boundary, knowing that, oh, my mind can't take me any further. There's a boundary to my logical thinking mind. And I guess that realization is a key element of Zen Buddhism. Yeah, so maybe violence is a bit of an exaggeration, but honestly not far off. I mean, violence has been used to teach Zen in the past. In the old Zen monasteries, it was very common for the master to have a stick with which he would hit the students. And I mean, this tradition still exists some places today. And now hitting a student with a stick is not meant to be abusive in any way. It's meant as a wake-up call. It would often be used during sitting meditation. So the student would get a little tap on their back or their shoulders to sort of wake up and be present and alive. And there's plenty of stories of old Zen masters that would do crazy shit like that to help the students realize their own mind. Like pushing a student to the ground or cutting a student's finger off. I'm telling you, Zen is nothing like anything else. Sometimes it can be really difficult to communicate when you're limited to just using words. Because some things just seem really indescribable, right? I guess words is just a way of comparing things. How can you talk about anything without comparing it to a word you know or something you've seen in the past? But if your experience doesn't compare to anything you've ever experienced before, how can you communicate it? It's a bit like trying to communicate a color to a blind person, right? They have nothing to relate it to. So what word can you use except blue, red? That means nothing to a blind person. And on the other hand, if the purpose of your talking is to make someone think less or be less engaged in thought, does it then make sense to give them more to think about? And if you want your teaching to make someone be more engaged in the world around them and less engaged in the words that describe the world around them, does it then make sense to give them more words? There was actually once a Zen master called Pu Hua, and he never said a word. He was teaching without words. So just his mere presence, I guess, inspired people to be more present or whatever. So he would communicate through gestures and facial expressions. But that's it. And people were obsessing over him. They were like coming all over the country to see him and meet him and be in his presence. So sometimes I think silence can really be a good way to teach, because instead of trying to describe something indescribable, we just show it, right? So hopefully you're super confused at this point, because, well, now you know how Zen is taught, but what is it really that Zen is teaching? So let's talk a bit about that. Now, Zen is Zen Buddhism, right? That means it's a branch of Buddhism. So Zen really just teaches the same thing as Buddhism as you know it. But the only thing that differs is the way that Zen is taught. It's different than other branches of Buddhism. So let's start with Buddhism. What is Buddhism? So Buddhism is really just the teaching that everything changes at all times, right? That's the core idea of Buddhism. So that everything changes is something that we don't quite agree with, right? Because there's me and there's you and it's quite separate. But maybe on a more, say, molecular level, we could say that everything is changing, right? Right now there's an apple, I eat the apple, then it's me all of a sudden, right? I poop it out, it's not me anymore. It becomes fertilizer, it becomes soil, it becomes a tree, it becomes a new apple. And maybe you eat it, and now it's you, right? It might be the same thing that's going sort of in a cycle. So that's the idea that everything changes. Meaning that the barrier between what is me and what is you is a bit more blurred than maybe the way we perceive it. So Zen is just trying to make us realize the idea of change by making us realize how our mind likes to perceive things and put things into boxes and me and you, and have clear definition in a very dualistic approach. So you could say that Buddhism is trying to make us question our reality, but Zen does it by making us experience that we're wrong, not by telling us that we might be wrong, right? So in many ways, it's just about the approach, really. Buddhism wants to make you realize that you might be wrong in your thinking, and Zen just does it in a way by showing you that you're wrong instead of telling you that you're wrong. So you could say it puts an emphasis on the practical element of Buddhism instead of the theoretical aspect of Buddhism. But while we're talking about it and trying to understand Zen Buddhism in this very theoretical approach, we're really missing the point, right? Because if you were to ask a Zen master, hey, what is Zen? They would probably give you some silly answer. Like in the past, a Zen master was asked, what is Zen? And he answered like this. Yeah, so that's Zen. So instead of trying to understand it in this really theoretical approach, the mind that wants to categorize Zen as a philosophy, right? And try and compare it to other philosophies. Well, instead, let's just experience Zen instead of trying to understand Zen. So why talk more about Zen? Let's goof around a bit, let's be silly. And let's do it with a song. The song is called Zen Is Silly. And I have no clue how it will turn out because that'll be recorded in the next scene. Good luck, future Nico. Zen Is Silly. This is a sensational song. It's gonna fill your ears with nonsense all night long. It's gonna leave you rocking in your boat. Oh yeah, and all these nasty Zen words, they're gonna stuff them down your throat. Oh, oh, oh. And don't worry if you don't understand a thing, 'cause I won't blame you. It's just a song. Don't you worry if you don't understand a thing, 'cause I won't blame you. It's just this song. What a sensational song and what a sensational video. I hope you liked it and I hope you learned some more about Zen. And if you're more interested about the topic of Zen, I think you should go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Let me keep my balance here. And also, if you want to learn more about Zen, you should watch this video I made about my favorite book about Zen Buddhism. It's called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. It's really interesting and it's definitely something for you if you made it this far into the video. If nothing else, have a great day.